There exists a profound and often unspoken battle that every single human being wages within the quiet chambers of their own mind. It's the battle between the narrative the world imposes upon us and the truth of who we know ourselves to be. You see, the world is a cacophony of voices, opinions, and judgments. From the moment we gain consciousness, we are handed scripts, told who we should be, what we should want, and how we should measure our worth. These scripts are written by parents, peers, culture, and the relentless highlight reels of social media. But I want you to pause for a moment and consider this. What if the most important duty you have in this lifetime is not to fulfill the world's expectations, but to rediscover and reclaim your own original voice? What if your primary mission is to sift through that noise, to separate the toxic chatter from constructive feedback, and to build an unshakable citadel of self-belief from which you operate? This isn't about arrogance or ignoring reality. This is about the foundational psychology of human achievement and inner peace. It's about understanding that external validation is a fickle currency, while internal conviction is the permanent treasure. Let's delve into the why. Why is this internal compass so critical? Neuroscience and psychology point to a concept called the self-concept. This is the mental and emotional blueprint you hold of yourself. It governs your actions, your resilience, and your very perception of what's possible. When your self-concept is strong and positive, born from your own authentic experiences and beliefs, you become resilient. Criticism becomes data, not a death sentence. Failure becomes a lesson, not an identity. However, when your self-concept is fragile, constructed primarily from the reflections others throw at you, you live in a state of perpetual vulnerability. Every negative comment is a crack in your foundation. Every sidelong glance is a potential earthquake. You become a prisoner to external opinion, constantly renovating your personality to suit an audience that's always changing its mind. This is an exhausting and ultimately futile way to live. So why do we fall into this trap? It's rooted in our evolutionary biology. We are tribal creatures. In our ancient past, rejection from the tribe meant literal death. So, our brains are hardwired to seek approval, to fit in, to scan for social threat. That ancient alarm bell still rings today when we face criticism or ridicule. It triggers a flood of stress hormones. The modern tribe might be your coworkers, your online followers, or your community, but the physiological reaction is primal. The first step to freedom is recognizing that this reaction is an old program running in a new world. Your survival in the 21st century does not depend on the unanimous approval of your peer group. Your thriving depends on your ability to discern, to create, and to stand firm in your values. Have you ever felt that visceral pang of anxiety when someone disapproves of you? That's the ancient program firing. The question is, will you let it dictate your modern life? Now, let's make this concrete with real-life examples. Consider the story of a young writer. She spends years crafting her first novel, pouring her soul onto the page. She submits it to dozens of literary agents. The rejections pour in. One says her characters are flat. Another says the plot is unoriginal. A particularly harsh one says she simply doesn't have what it takes. If she internalizes these voices as absolute truth, what happens? The manuscript goes into a drawer, and a dream dies. She might spend years, even a lifetime, believing the narrative that she is not a real writer. But let's follow a different path. What if she possesses that crucial filter? She reads the feedback, feels the sting, but then engages in a deliberate process. She asks, is there a useful thread here? The comment about flat characters. Can she revisit her character development with fresh eyes? The plot criticism. Can she brainstorm to add a unique twist? but the comment about not having what it takes. She recognizes that as pure noise, a reflection of that agent's subjective taste or perhaps their own bad day. She files that one away as irrelevant. She revises, she perseveres, and she continues to submit, all while holding on to the core belief that her story is worth telling. This is the alchemy of turning leaden criticism into golden growth. It requires separating the what from the who. The what is the work which can always be improved. The who is your inherent potential, which is non-negotiable. Take another example far from the arts. Imagine a mid-level manager in a corporate setting. He proposes an innovative but unconventional process to his team. Several colleagues immediately shoot it down. That's not how we do things here. It's too risky. It'll never get approval from upstairs. The social pressure to conform is immense. If he internalizes this as, my ideas are bad, or, I'm not a visionary leader, he will retreat. He will stop contributing innovative thoughts, becoming just another yes man. The company loses a potential source of growth, and he loses a piece of his professional identity. But what if he has cultivated that inner citadel? He listens to the objections, not as verdicts on his worth, but as logistical hurdles to be addressed. He thinks, their resistance isn't about me. It's about fear of change and uncertainty. He then prepares a more detailed proposal, anticipating concerns, building a stronger case with data. He doesn't take the no personally. He sees it as a step in the negotiation process. Whether the idea ultimately gets adopted or not, he maintains his self-concept as a proactive problem solver. This mindset is what separates leaders from followers, regardless of title. It's the ability to hold a vision in the face of inertia. How many great ideas in history were initially met with ridicule? From the light bulb to the smartphone, every paradigm shift faced a chorus of no before it became a resounding yes. Let's explore a third, more personal example. Think of a teenager in school. He's passionate about art, but he's consistently told by those around him, maybe even well-meaning parents, that art isn't a real career, that he should focus on something practical like engineering or medicine. Day after day, this message is reinforced. The world's narrative begins to overwrite his own. He starts to doubt his passion. He feels shame for wanting something impractical. He might eventually abandon drawing altogether, pursuing a path that feels alien to his soul, leading to a life of quiet dissatisfaction. This is the tragedy of an unlived life, born from adopting a script that was never yours. Now, envision the alternative. What if this teenager encounters a teacher, a mentor, or even finds a book that reinforces a different truth? That passion and practicality are not mutually exclusive. What if he learns the stories of successful graphic designers, animators, architects, or creative entrepreneurs? He begins to build his own counter-narrative. He starts to see his passion not as a liability, but as a unique compass. He works on his craft diligently, not just as a hobby, but as a serious skill. He learns the business side of art. He doesn't ignore the world's practical concerns. He addresses them on his own terms, armed with the confidence that his path, though less conventional, is valid. His belief system becomes his shield against the pressure to conform. This brings us to the mechanics of building that shield. It's not about building a wall of arrogance where you ignore all feedback. That's just another form of fragility, a defensive overreaction. True strength is discernment. It's developing an inner council. Imagine you have a board of directors in your mind. On this board sits your wisest self, your most compassionate self, and a few trusted mentors, real or historical, whose judgment you respect. When criticism comes in, you don't accept it blindly. You bring it before your inner council. You present the evidence. You ask, what can we learn from this? You allow your wise self to analyze it for truth, your compassionate self to manage the emotional impact, and your mentors to provide perspective. Feedback from a respected expert in your field might get significant weight. A spiteful comment from an internet stranger is swiftly dismissed by the council as irrelevant. This process moves you from a reactive state to a responsive, empowered state. You are no longer a ping-pong ball slapped by every passing opinion. You are the judge presiding over your own court of self-evaluation. But what about the emotional residue? Even when we logically dismiss a hurtful comment, the feeling can linger. This is where we must practice emotional alchemy. The sting you feel is often not about the content of the words, but about the reactivation of an old wound, a time in childhood when you felt rejected, or a previous failure that still carries shame. That critical comment is like a stranger accidentally bumping into a shoulder that's already bruised. The pain is disproportionate because it's touching a pre-existing injury. The work, then, is to heal that old bruise. This involves self-compassion. Talk to yourself as you would to a beloved friend who received that criticism. You wouldn't say, "They're right, you're worthless." You'd say, "Ouch, that hurt to hear. Let's look at this. Is there anything useful here? No? Then let's acknowledge it hurt. And let's remember all the reasons why that statement isn't the full story of who you are." This practice of reparenting yourself with kindness gradually soothes those old wounds, making you less reactive to new ones. We must also discuss the flip side, the power of your own words. Just as you are affected by the world's narrative, you are a co-author of the narrative for others. Understanding the terrifying impact of careless words should instill a deep sense of responsibility. When you label a child lazy or slow, you are not describing a behavior. You are potentially installing a core identity script that they may fight for decades. When you dismiss a colleague's idea with contempt, you are not just rejecting a proposal. You might be extinguishing a spark of innovation and damaging their confidence to contribute in the future. The karma of words is not mystical. It's psychological and social. You create the environment you live in. If you want to live in a world where people are courageous, creative, and resilient, you must contribute words that encourage, that provide specific and constructive feedback, and that separate a person's action from their inherent worth. Your speech should aim to build up, not to tear down. Ask yourself, are the words I'm about to speak necessary, true, and kind? If they are criticism, are they offered with the intent to help or to hurt? This mindfulness transforms you from a passive transmitter of the world's negativity into an active creator of a more supportive reality. Ultimately, this journey leads to a powerful realization. Your relationship with external opinion is a choice. It is a practiced skill. Every time you receive feedback, praise, or criticism, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads outward, where you outsource your self-worth. You ride the roller coaster of others' opinions, elated one moment and devastated the next. The other path leads inward. On this path, you receive the information, you feel the emotion, but then you return to your center. You consult your inner counsel. You ask, does this align with my truth? Does this help me move toward my vision? You integrate what is useful and release what is not. This inward path is the path of sovereignty. It is how you move from being a character in other people's stories to becoming the author of your own. Think of the most influential, inspiring people you know of. A common thread is not that they were universally loved or never criticized. On the contrary, they often faced torrents of disapproval. The thread is that they possessed a profound, almost stubborn belief in their mission. That belief was their North Star. It allowed them to navigate storms of doubt, both internal and external. They understood that trying to please everyone is a recipe for pleasing no one, especially yourself. Your energy is finite. Are you going to spend it constantly managing perceptions? Or are you going to spend it on the focused, relentless pursuit of what matters most to you? This is the fundamental allocation of your life force. So, let's bring this home. Start small. For one day, practice being the observer of your own thoughts. Notice when you say something self-critical like, "I'm so bad at this." Pause. Challenge it. Is that a fact, or is it a learned script? Replace it with a more accurate, process-oriented statement. "This is challenging for me right now, and I'm developing the skill." This simple reframe moves you from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Next, practice discernment with one piece of feedback you receive. Before reacting, write it down. Analyze it. Where is it coming from? What is its intent? Is there a 2% truth in it you can use? Claim that 2% and discard the 98% that is noise. This is mental muscle training. Remember the image of the tree. Your roots are your core values, your intrinsic sense of worth, your connection to something larger than the daily chatter. The wind and the rain are the opinions, the trends, the criticisms, and the praises of the world. A healthy tree does not resist the wind. It sways with it. It uses the wind to strengthen its trunk. But its roots hold firm. It does not confuse the weather with the soil. Your task is to grow those roots deep. Feed them with self-knowledge, with small victories, with the quiet certainty that comes from keeping promises to yourself. Water them with compassion and truthful self-assessment. The world will always have something to say. That is its nature. Your power lies not in silencing the world, an impossible task, but in mastering your own inner dialogue. When you do that, something miraculous happens. The world's noise begins to fade into the background. It becomes like the sound of traffic to someone working intently in a cozy room. You hear it, but it doesn't dictate your actions. Your focus sharpens. Your decisions become more authentic. Your life begins to align with a purpose that is uniquely, unmistakably yours. And in that alignment, you find not just success as the world defines it, but something far more precious, a profound and unshakable peace. You realize that the ultimate meaning, the ultimate duty, was never about proving yourself to the world. It was about returning to yourself again and again, and having the courage to believe what you find there. The journey inward is the only journey that ultimately defines the quality of your life out here. So, what will you choose to believe about yourself today?